What was that?
Oh, VR tester says that they're blown away by the Apple Reality OS.
Now we're on the appropriate stream. Huzzah!
Hey, I just got a notification that, that's sly. You only have to accept it once.
Really?
So you could, yeah. So we didn't get another notice in Zoom that you went live. So we only had to accept once, which is interesting. I guess they assume if you're willing to be streamed and you accepted it the first time, you don't care if they stop and stream you somewhere else. Doesn't matter.
Right.
Boom.
So what we're going to do, Marty is here, but he's working on a situation. When I introduce everybody, I'll introduce Marty. And then when Marty, you could come in, just, cut us, and then we will, just have you come in when you want to talk and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Or don't. We'll see.
Just depends on how. Never mind. Never mind.
Family friendly.
Yes, indeed. Although it's funny because I absolutely knew that whenever I put out the new iAccessibility app, I absolutely knew how family friendly the content would be because it was only the iACast stuff. But now, because we have so much content and anything can be said in any of the unmute calls, I'm like, I better specify that there could be some language.
I don't think that's going to be an issue, but I also see your concern too, because it's like CYA.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, it's nice to have it for, they have 4+, but I was like, we better err on the side of caution here. Because there's a lot more content now going through the iAccessibility app than there ever was, which is exciting. But at the same time, it's like, we better just be careful. So, all right. Are you guys ready?
I'm as ready as I'm going to be.
Great. And I'm pretty level with you guys, right?
As far as I can tell, hold on, I'm not looking at the stream though. But yeah, your volume to me is about where Michael's is for me.
Okay, great.
And I'll just verify real quick on the YouTube stream too, just so we all know. Okay. But I think you're correct. Let's see. I'm talking. Wait, I'm talking. I feel
like I'm low. Yeah, you gotta wait for the delay.
Yeah, that delay stinks. You could control that with some streaming programs, just not Zoom.
And I was buffered too from when I was loud there.
Oh, I've done that. Like, I've been watching a stream and the stream's still going and I'm chatting about stuff and I'm like, oh, that was like 30 minutes ago.
Yeah. Yeah, you're a tiny bit lower than us, but Michael and Michael are about the same level. So.
Okay, so we are about the same level.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
And Demasi's just a little low, but he's used to being the quiet
lower.
one. Yeah, you're a little bit lower than Michael and I.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's good.
It'll
be all right.
Yeah.
It'll
it's not like.
Out.
Yeah.
All right. You guys ready?
No.
Yep.
All right. I guess your no is actually a yes, Mike.
Yes.
All right. Just making sure.
If I wasn't ready, I figured you guys would just go and we'd roll with it.
Yeah. All right. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the iACast. All right. We have a great conversation for you guys today. With me, I have Michael Babcock back.
Hello. It's been a little while, Michael. I think, maybe. Last show?
Yeah, last show, I guess. Yeah, it's hard to... We got so many people that come on. It's like, oh.
So many moving parts.
Yes. And we have Marty back with us. Marty will be joining us shortly. And we also have, I don't know if he's been on the show before, but Demasi.
Nope, first time here and glad to be here. Thank you
Yes.
for inviting me.
And you guys can hear Damasi on so many other podcasts, Unmute Presents and uh, Technically Working, and so many other shows. And would you guys like to talk about, Unmute and Technically Working and all of the other projects you guys are working on?
So I'll give a quick recap of what we've been doing with Unmute real quick, and then I'll hand it over to Damasi to explain what's going on with Technically Working. So as you hear this episode,
He's Canadian all of a sudden.
all right. Oh,
Shout out to Canada.
yes. So as you hear this episode, you can get the latest Unmute Presents podcast live call in the podcast platform of choice. Damasi would have just published some content talking about security and why you should be aware of what you're putting in the holes of your iPhone. And then on Sunday, you would have heard probably either Mac Whisper or Mac GPT, which means Michael's going to record something for Sunday, and I have no clue what's publishing. So go look at the podcast feed. Damasi, what are we doing with Technically Working?
So Technically Working is a show that we recently started. I think we're at 6 episodes, and the basic premise behind this show as it stands today is really for us to share our experiences as we're working through real life issues, mostly business related, technology. There'll be some personal stuff that will crop up in there as well. So just a good conversational show discussing the actual things we go through day to day and keeping ourselves accountable, because if we talk about it on the show, then that means we ultimately have to do it, or you're going to have to show up on the show and be like, well, I totally did not do that thing. And nobody really wants to do that. So
Makes for a very boring show.
I didn't do it. Nope.
I need like 10 or 15 more minutes, or if you guys want to wait, if not, then
We
I
already
understand.
started, Marty.
Okay.
So just jump in when you can.
Yep.
Okay. Give me like 10-ish minutes and I should be good. I'll be back.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's Technically Working.
makes for a very boring show. So that's Technically Working. That's a good cutback.
Yeah. All right. So, and they're all great shows. I mean, I listen to all of their shows. They're great. So if you guys are subscribed to the iACast but not to Unmute or Technically Working, you really should go and subscribe to these podcasts. They're fantastic. And that is not my pick for the day. So you have to stay tuned for that. And I believe last Sunday, Marty did a demo of the microphone that I'm on right now, the Sennheiser Profile.
Yep.
So that was a fantastic demo. You should really go listen to that. I heard it and I went out and bought one probably that day.
That was the episode that was published on Unmute on April 16th, and it is the Unmute Presents the Profile, and that is Marty recorded that real quick, and he likes that microphone. So do you, apparently. So
Oh, I love it. I love it. And it might be my pick. You'll never know.
well, you will if you listen to the end of the
Yes,
episode.
until you have to listen to the end to know what my pick is, because it could be a few things. So I guess let's go ahead and talk about the rapidly assembling news of SpaceX.
Well, I thought you were going to say the rapidly assembling news of disassembling spaceships.
Well, that too. Yeah, exactly. I couldn't get the pun out that well, but you did. So congratulations. So today, this is April 20th. SpaceX launched its super heavy rocket called Starship, and it was supposed to go up and do a launch and then be able to flip up and then eject the solid booster. It flipped, but did not eject the booster. So it was, according to them, rapidly disassembled. In other words, it exploded.
Man, you gotta love marketing, people. It didn't
Yeah.
explode. It was rapidly disassembled.
And when you
Exactly.
look at the history books, they'll say the SpaceX ship was rapidly disassembled while people enjoyed 420 relaxing.
It was automated.
Yep, it was automated.
You know,
Automated disassembly.
I wonder if like there's a failsafe, like if they know that it is not going according to plan, does the ship itself just say, "Oh, boom," or does somebody press the button to rapidly disassemble the ship?
I don't know. I am not that much. I'm sure someone listening who is more into space would have an answer because I am not that into space and what's going on. But yeah,
My assumption would be that I would build in a fail safe where I could push a button just in case things didn't go according to plan.
Mm-hmm.
But that's me, and I'm also paranoid. But
Right.
I would think you would build that in because you can't always count on automated systems to do what you have automated them to do at the time you automated them to do it.
They
What?
did say that they did not plan. You know, they planned for it to launch, get up in the air, and the hope was for it to do everything they wanted it to do, but it did not. So it was very interesting.
and didn't someone say something like our goal was to get it off the runway, so it met that goal or something? I
Off
don't
the
know
launch pad,
Yeah,
yes.
off the launch pad. Like, I mean, at least they know.
Right.
And this was delayed by a couple of days. I think it was supposed to happen on Monday, so we'll see where that happens in the near future. And just for full transparency, because I wanted to verify, this was an unmanned operation, so I don't believe there was any injuries or anything involved in that.
Correct. Mm-hmm. So it was, you know, it comes back to technology. We always talk about technology. You know, space travel is a technology, so it's very interesting that you know, we're trying towards these advancements, and it's just very interesting. Yep. So, let's see. I know that there's not a lot of tech news this time. There is some rumors about some new Apple, or about iOS and all those things for iOS 17 and all of those platforms. It's interesting because it seems like the biggest focus is going to be on the watch and the control center. The control center really hasn't been updated that much since, you know, for a while, 2017, I believe. So, what are y'all's thoughts on that? Do you think that this is going to be a good thing, or do you guys wish we were getting more, or what are y'all's thoughts?
So I haven't seen the rumors, but just a rumor being out there that they're going to be working on Control Center. Like, I would like more customization in Control Center. I like the ability to put, maybe some different apps there to launch besides what they give you by default, which I guess means they will have to introduce an API for developers to make their apps available there. But I would like to see more customization there for sure. And it's a little busy as well. So, like, first thing I do now, I think the last time I set up a device, I had to take out the home integration in Control Center because it's like it's just too much going on in here. So that is interesting to me that they're working on that. Hopefully, because they're working on Control Center, some of those things will go across platforms to the Mac, iPad as well as the phone. And of course, the watch needs a lot of work, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
That has me excited. The watch, any improvement to the watch would have me excited. Mallory has the Ultra, and she really likes it. But I'm perfectly happy with the 6 because of the interface with the 6, and I don't use it. I think because of, I don't know, maybe because it's sluggish and not convenient to use. So I think WatchOS needs some love. And I saw that, and I'm like, maybe that'll make me excited about Apple Watch again.
Right.
Yeah, I want to see some more dynamic faces. Like the Siri face was a really good idea when they introduced it, and it's like they just never followed through to complete, building that out. So I would like to see something more like that, or the dynamic island style thing where things surface as necessary. Like, give me a complication or two that I can put on a watch face that will change according to what's going on. So Fantastic Hour will show up when I have an event coming up, for example. But if I don't have an event, coming up, I don't see a Fantastic Hour thing that says "Have a nice day" or has the number 0. Like I don't just
Right.
give me something
Just
else. Then
just
like
don't show
the
me that.
weather or
Right.
something like that. So hopefully we'll get something along those lines this year. I am at a point where I could and probably should update my watch when they release the newest watch.
Mm-hmm.
But I might not, just because right now the primary use case for me is just this is a way for me to get those important notifications that I don't have to pull out my phone for. So
Right. That's what I use mine for too. I use it for health and fitness. I'm a huge user of the watch for that kind of stuff. And it's great for swimming or walking. I don't use it for a lot of things, but I think
I
at
aspire
any
to be like you, Michael, when I grow up.
But one of the things that I really hope they fix is multiple sounds for notifications. I love the sounds that we have, but I want more. And that kind of gets onto my rant on the phone about people using silent notifications. I despise that. I do not like silent notifications, and there's a bunch of apps that do that. So YouTube does it. So you'll be doing something on your phone. You're low vision, so you don't have to be looking up. Something's up there. You tap, and all of a sudden a video is playing because it was a silent notification.
Gotcha.
I've never experienced that because it's nothing silent with voiceover, so
Right.
what's going on. Like,
Right.
Well, so I kind of got caught like that, funny enough, yesterday. I'm trying to remember what the app was, but I went to I touched the status bar, and I'm a voiceover user. I touched the status bar, and I went to double tap the status bar to scroll back to the top of the window. And in between me touching it and actually performing the double tap, which obviously is not that long of a time, a notification slipped in there that wasn't spoken. Phone didn't vibrate or anything like that at all. So when I double tap, I now have launched this app, and I forget what it was. And I was completely somewhere I was not expecting to be, and it took me a sec to figure out what happened.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how did I get here?
So that's kind of my biggest frustration with iOS is they let there be silent notifications, and it just drives me crazy. So I think we need to reach out to Apple and talk about this. Like, hey, this can be, what if some app is looking for authentication? You tap that notification, not knowing it's going to be there, and boom, they've gotten authorization.
Yeah, that is a potential problem also. I guess I don't run into it as often because I don't have a lot of notifications on. Like my default when I install a new app or open an app and it requests notifications is no. Like so I need to figure out if I need your notifications.
And then I'm having issues where I just had to reset all the settings on my phone because of some issue. I don't remember what it was, but now apps are not showing up for notification permissions. So it's like, I want to get notifications for these apps, but it's not available to turn that back on. It's like, gotta
Wow.
love the errors.
Now, what I would like to see in 17, because we were talking about rumors in 17, and all of this talk about GPT and chat AI and stuff like that. It's people are like, I want Apple to have a chat bot, and I'm like, no, I just want Apple to give me some reliable predictive text to actually use that makes sense. And I think they could easily do that in 17. I probably won't see it, but that's what I want.
You see, if they did that, then all of the crazy Facebook double tap on your next predictive word games will go away.
Yep. Because then they'll actually make sense. So everyone's like, whatever.
But we don't always speculate here on this podcast, but I find it interesting to talk about sometimes. Just where WWDC is coming up, it's very exciting. So, very interesting stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, we're about at that point too, where a lot of rumors that you may hear, not all of them certainly, but from the sources that you're used to getting them from at this point, around this time of year is mostly what they say is kind of going to be true or has some truth to it or a bit more truth to it than normal. Because we're at the time where, Apple is finalizing the next phone for release. They're finalizing what they want to be in the next OS or at least what they're going to show off at WWDC. So it's an interesting time to speculate or pay attention if you are interested in what's coming up. The biggest thing for me this year around Apple at all is uh, the new phones, the new iPhone, because speculation is we're going to get USB-C, and it's like, okay,
Rounded
upgrade
edges
for that.
again, and all
And
that
I'm
stuff.
just here for the USB-C.
I kind of want the rounded edges. I've never cared for the sharp edges.
I love the flat edges myself.
I like the current body of the phone. Like the way that I've heard about the rounded edges is they're going to kind of smooth off those edges a little bit, but it'll still kind of have that flat side. So that may be cool. Like I'm
Yeah.
not totally objecting against that. But I'm really mostly looking at upgrading for USB-C. Like if they release a phone in September and there's no USB-C, like I'm pretty certain I won't upgrade this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just excited about the new phones. And
Although I do want a Pro, because this would be my first Pro phone, because they're not going to make a Mini again
No.
anytime soon either. So I'm going to have to go up to, I figure if I'm going up to a phone size I don't like, I may as well get the Pro, which, brings along the dynamic island at least. So I'm curious to see how that works out.
now, do you guys think that we need this is also in the rumors, do you guys think we need a 15-inch MacBook Air?
I
can-
personally, go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say, I can see the place for it for someone who wants something lighter than maybe a MacBook Pro and just wants that larger screen. Because right now it's an 11-inch for the MacBook Air, correct? Or is it 13?
13.
Okay. So yeah, I can definitely see that for that. If it was between the 11 going to a 15, that would be a bit more of a jump for me. But the 13 and a 15-inch to me makes a little bit of sense.
Yeah, I just feel like, why not just dump the 13-inch Pro and have a 13-inch and a 13-inch Air, 15-inch Pro?
I think we may get there with this. I think it makes sense to have that 15-inch in the lineup if they're going to keep going down the path that they're going down with the Air and the Pro being where they are. It gives them something in between. I think starting price for the M2 Air right now is what, $1,299,
Something like that,
$1,300, something like that. So your next jump up, it completely ignoring that Touch Bar MacBook Pro that's still out there, because you really shouldn't buy that.
Right.
If your company buys it for you, that's their money, but don't spend your money on it. Is my suggestion.
And if you get one, just go, oh.
Yeah. So completely ignoring that computer, because I don't think is here forever. I just think it's a stopgap. Between the 13-inch M2 Air and the next laptop up that you can buy, that you should buy, would be the 14-inch Pro, right? So you're going from $1,200, $1,300 up to, what is it, $2,000, $2,200?
Right.
Before you even start customizing anything. So getting something that fits into that slot for people that also comes with a bigger screen. Because again, a lot of people buy the MacBook. Like I know people who buy the or have bought the 16-inch Pro just because they wanted a bigger than 13-inch screen.
Right.
And you give them a 15-inch, 15.5, something like that, and screen on an Air like that. I mean, I'm using a MacBook Air right now. I've been using a MacBook Air since last September. And it's a great computer. I think if I were going to buy another laptop, I would probably buy a Pro, but that's only because my workflows have changed a little bit. But it's a great computer for anybody. So giving people a slightly bigger screen so they're not jumping up over that $2,000 mark just to get a lightweight laptop is an excellent move.
And maybe that 15-inch would have better speakers than the 13. So that's all good things.
Yeah.
Yep. Better speakers probably, better battery life for sure. They'll have a little bit more space to put battery in there. Although you got to be careful, I think, there not to over batteryalize it, because it still should be light and ideally lighter than the 14-inch Pro.
Well, even if they put more battery, it would be a bigger enclosure, so the M2 or M3 would be more efficient and can use that really well at that screen size. So that would be a great thing.
Yeah, they should also consider putting a SD card slot on the side of it. Not
I
because I
agree.
want it, but because I think that is again a use case why a lot of people want a bigger screen. Is because they're editing a lot of photos or videos that they're pulling off of these cameras with SD cards, and it's
Now-
thin enough to fit in the body.
Now, something else that I've just seen that I'm curious if this is new or not, but I just saw that the Audible app is showing up on Mac.
That is new as of yesterday, I believe.
And that's pretty exciting, us having a native, well, it's the iPhone app, but it is or iPad app, but it is a native app for M1 Max to listen to Audible.
Now, it is my understanding, however, that as of the time of recording, again, 420, that the Audible app, if you command tab out of it, does not do background playback. So you have to have the Audible app in focus to listen to it. I don't know if you've played with that or not, but someone told me that.
I don't know about command tab, but you cannot command Q.
Right, because that would quit the app. But it was my understanding. Maybe I misinterpreted or someone didn't understand. Because to me, if you command Q out of an app, it's gonna quit the app, so you can't listen to it. But it was my understanding that if you moved focus out of the app, so if you're in Safari, you can't have an audiobook playing in the background.
Or command W. You can't close the window either.
Yep. So,
but I can test
I'm excited.
it real quick.
You should, because I'm interested to see if that is true, and then you can edit me out. But I am excited for this. Or you can leave me in there and be like, Michael doesn't know what he's talking about since it's on YouTube, so you might as well just leave it there.
Yeah, we'll just leave it in.
Not excited at all. I don't care.
Really?
Yeah. I'm actually not using Audible.
I'm pretty much done with Audible at this point. So I still have an Audible account because I still buy books out of Audible. But I download my books and bring them into. Excuse me. I download my books and bring them into Plex, and using an app on iOS called Prologue. That is how I've been listening to audiobooks. And for me, kind of the reason behind that is not just to be, obstinate, but I have small children who like audiobooks, and I can't just give them the Audible app on their iPad because Audible does not give you any sort of way to filter what little children are going to see. So that's what started me down the path of using Plex and Prologue, which just gives you a nice front end, gives you kind of an Audible feel to the app. The old Audible app, actually, like when Audible, before they start messing around with stuff with the home and all the things they're doing now. Prologue is a very good app for listening to audiobooks connected through Plex. So that's how I got there. And just for me, is like everything is in there. So even if I buy books because I also buy audiobooks from other places at times, like they're all in one place versus me jumping through apps. So Audible being on the Mac is cool. Like it's good to see that they finally have made that move. But for me, it is just complete lack of interest of anything Audible is doing, unless they're talking about taking away my credits.
And Michael, it does play in the background.
Okay, so I was wrong about that. Then what people are probably doing is hitting Command W, expecting it still to play. Which to me,
instead of hitting tab.
Either Command W or Command Q is going to stop the playback, anyways. But
there's like native Mac apps will run in the background, but they can play. And I wonder if the iAccessibility app will work if you close the window. I hope I programmed it that way.
Now you're going to have to go test it.
We'll have to test that. But basically, Twitter does the same thing. If you do Command W, it just closes the app. It does not keep it open for multiple windows. And I wonder if that's the case. It's for apps that don't use like the scene delegate, the multi-window support, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that would be, because I've seen a couple of apps like that too. I can't recall which ones they are at the moment, but yeah, you hit Command W, just think like, okay, let me close this window a minute. It's like, no, the whole app is gone. Bye-bye.
I mean, that works more like Windows on Windows.
Right.
Our favorite Reddit app that never comes out of beta is that way.
Yes. At this point, I'm starting to think that guy's just trolling Apple. Like, yeah, you can't kick me out of the store or prevent me from being in the store if I never submit to the store.
But they keep reviewing and accepting his stuff. So,
Now,
yeah, but test flights are easier lift, right? Like to get into test flights, you don't have to pass the same app review you would to get in the store, or has that changed?
If you go for external testers, anytime you put out a new major version, you do have to go through a form of app review.
so what's a major version? Because he's never gone to one.
Yeah, he's still on.
Oh, he hasn't?
Something. Yeah. So
Yeah.
he's never moved past that.
That's how he's doing it.
No, never went past that one. So it's like 0.4 or something like that. I think he actually matches the version numbers up with the month that the test flight expires or something.
That's awesome. And you know, for a while, ISH and some of those apps were only in test flight because of that reason. So,
Yeah, I was thinking iSH wasn't going to even get out of test flight at one point.
but it's in the store. A Shell is in the store. Both of those are great apps for using a Linux shell on your phone or iPad. So, check those out.
That is not his pick.
Nope, that's still not my pick.
Stay tuned.
That'll be the theme of the show. Is what's Michael's pick?
Has he mentioned it already or not?
The name of the episode. That is not his pick.
Right. That might be a good name for the episode. Okay, so we usually have a spot where we talk about a specific thing, but we're just going to go right into our conversation today. And that, I think, is kind of a big topic because it's been in the news, it's been everywhere, and that's people are finding ways around passcode locks to get into people's phones. And, you know, tell me if I'm wrong about this, but I think what's happening is people are looking over your shoulder and they're typing in your code, or they're seeing you type in your code with to unlock your phone if you don't use biometrics. Then when you go to put your phone down, they take your phone, and then they can unlock your phone. They could go in and they can change your iCloud password with a setting in the settings app. I don't remember where that setting is, but
Yeah, it's just if you tap on your account name and change password. So I didn't realize this until I helped somebody change their password a while back. And you just go to settings, tap on your name, tap on security, change password, and it will only ask you for the passcode to the device that you're on, and then that lets you change your password. And I was like, okay, I see how that is handy for somebody who, you know, like this person was, where they don't go in the App Store all that often, so they're not always entering their password, very easily forgot it, not using a password manager, et cetera, et cetera. But it was easy for them to change their password because they know their PIN code, because that is something they're constantly, you know, putting in their phone, interacting with their phone. What is happening, but you're right, what is happening is people are, and the way I've heard it is that a lot of people are working kind of in groups. So you have one person that's kind of, you know, playing the distraction or whatever. You got another person that's the watcher to see you type in your code. And one of the ways that they're accomplishing this is, you know, one, just, you know, watching over your shoulder to see you type in your code if that's something that you're doing, or engineering it so that you have to type in your PIN code so somebody can try to see it. So one way that that's been done is somebody taking a picture for you, right? You're hanging out in front of this cool statue or something like that. You're like, hey, could you please take a picture of me? I'm like, sure. So they'll take your picture. But they also do the little trick on the side where you hold down the side button and the volume button, and it locks your phone and forces you to enter your PIN. So at that point, you have to enter your PIN. And I see how that could work to social engineer someone, simply because how many times have you either held your phone especially with Face ID, right? You've held your phone at a weird angle, or somebody else has been holding your phone for some reason, and the phone's just constantly like, oh, is that you? No, I don't know you. Is that you? No, I don't know you. Is that you? No, I don't know you. And now it's locked out, so you have to type in your password. Right. You would assume that's what happened when they were taking the picture. And somebody gets your password, and then they take your phone. And, you know, once they've been able to change your iCloud password, they now have you can't get in to mark that device as stolen through Find My, because they've changed your password. So now you can't get into your account, but they can deactivate all of your other devices, thereby preventing you from being able to easily reset that password also. And now they have access to a lot of data because they're in your phone.
Right.
And for a lot of people, they use the same email address that is tied to their Apple ID iCloud account as their main email address. Like, for a lot of people, that is they are the same. So, you know, you're in the phone, you can access the email, you can do all sorts of password resets, etc. So it's a bad situation. My advice is, one, always be mindful of where you are when you're entering your password. If you feel any way vaguely uncomfortable, like, just don't type it in. Just wait until you're somewhere where you know you're safe. And be aware of people just be cognizant. The same way you would if you were carrying a bag or wearing an expensive watch. Like, just be mindful that your phone or the information on your phone does have value to someone besides you.
But one of the things that I feel like is very important is we need to have discussions about this online, because I think through discussions we need to get these tech companies to really make these changes, because that is a big security vulnerability, and people are not going to be always listening to this podcast or others that you guys are on, or the news, or ways that you can do this, and they're just going to be vulnerable. And I think technology companies need to own up to this. And I've always had a real problem with forced entry of a passcode, because we have these biometrics to make things easier. But if you get a notification and your phone's on a desk and it thinks it sees a face and then not, and all of a sudden you're locked out of your phone, it's not only just an inconvenience, it could be a security vulnerability that they haven't even thought of.
Insert Marty here.
Hi, Marty.
Hello.
Welcome.
Are you
I
here
think-
for the duration?
I think I blew it. As you guys got to be done by now, or almost anyway.
Nope.
We're almost to the best part. So you can just pull a Jeff and join in the end, and then come in with your pick after we get to that.
Well, and if you want to talk about the topic and just say,
'Cause we're
I'll
at security.
we're talking about security and people using passcodes to getting people's passcodes.
And I have some flexibility because I forgot that I have this iPad thing here next to me. So I'm just going to log into the Zoom meeting on that. I already got that all set up. So, and you guys haven't heard that. So we're good to go.
So I'm just going to count in and say, and we've got Marty back with us. So I'll just do that. 3, 2, 1. So Marty's back with us. So hi, Marty.
Hey, all. How's it going?
Great. We're glad to have you here. So we were
Thank
just
you.
we're just talking about security, and that people need to be cognizant of where they are with their phones, and using, if you do have to enter your passcode, don't let people see you do it. But also, we need to stress this to Apple and Google and others that these biometrics need to be more available, so that we don't have these security problems. And one of the issues that I have is when you're, just using your phone, and, say you're a little too close when you go to authorize that purchase, and you do that one or two times, it's going to ask you for your passcode there anyway.
Right.
And, that's another point of vulnerability right there, because you're obviously going to have to enter it to make that purchase. And if people are watching over your shoulder, that's, not even just unlocking your phone, you're making a purchase, and people can see that.
Yep.
Yep.
There are a lot of instances where people being able to watch over your shoulder, and I find this particularly difficult to manage sometimes as a person that's completely blind, because I've never had like 20/20 vision, and the usable vision I did have when I was younger growing up still wasn't great. So I have no real concept of how far people can see. Right, like people literally will stand on the other side of, like, you can't hear them because they're not making enough noise, but they are, a good distance away from you, but they're able to see what you're doing on your phone, because of the angles and the fact that they can, they have a line of sight to it. And that's the thing that I think is hard for a lot of people to conceptualize, along with the fact that somebody's actually looking at you, right? Because I think we all kind of at different times in life have that point of where you don't think anybody's paying attention to what you're doing, because, like, you're not doing anything interesting. And so why would anybody be paying attention? I don't see them. They don't see me.
Well, if you are someone, now this is not going to work for everyone. This is why I say if you're someone who is visually impaired or blind, one thing you can do to keep yourself safe is wear an earbud. That way nobody can hear your voiceover, and turn on screen curtain. And that way nobody can see your screen, and you're pretty much protected there, because they won't be able to hear your audio and they won't be able to see your screen. So if you can handle both of those things, it's a good safety tip for anyone who's able to do that.
Absolutely.
But again, it doesn't work for everybody. I know some people, like, just earbuds bother their ears, and they utilize the brightness on their screens. But I think we just need to have that conversation with Apple and Google and say, maybe a good in-screen fingerprint would be a good idea. Maybe these 3 tries you're out strategies are not working because they're making it less secure. I
will.
honestly,
I was going to say, I will say that currently, I would say over the past few weeks to a month or so, I've had a major problem with Face ID, where it won't unlock my phone all the time. And I even have it with my watch, is that if the face detection fails, then the watch would be the next thing to jump in and authenticate for my phone. And then if that doesn't work, then you punch the code in. But the Face ID and the watch authentication has been kind of janky over the past month or so. They did do an update to try and resolve that issue, and it did make it a little bit better for me, but it's still not working perfectly. So in this kind of situation, I would say to Apple, this kind of thing should be a priority, and please get this fixed ASAP, because what a pain,
right. And I think that's the kind of the big thing is, Apple thought, okay, entering your PIN would be a inconvenience. Well, it's becoming more of a security vulnerability than an inconvenience.
And on other devices, for example, you have it's going to be the iPhone SE and the iPad mini and the iPad Air, the newer models. So I think that'd be the 4, maybe the 5. I don't remember the ending numbers, but it's the iPad Airs, the iPad minis with the new design, the all glass design, as well as the iPhone SE. They all have a fingerprint sensor still.
Right.
And in the iPad and the iPad mini, they have the fingerprint sensor in the power button. So I don't see why they couldn't put a fingerprint sensor in all of them, because that would just be another way to be able to access if Face ID doesn't work, if your watch doesn't work, hey, use your fingerprint. It would seem like it wouldn't be such a big deal for them to add that right into the power button on all the models.
And I found that the power button Touch ID works a bit better than it does in the home button. Have you guys seen that?
Oh, yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. I think that the finger ID works ultimately the best out of all of the, what would you call it? The biometric. Thank you, Damasi.
Yeah, I haven't used Touch ID on a button like the home button in a while, but I do like the Touch ID and the power button. I have an iPad with that. And personally, I would like to see just different authentication options anyway. Like Face ID is great, but I would also like to have Touch ID, because I would like there to be some scenarios where you need both of those in order to complete this action or do this thing on my phone, right? Without it being, just Face ID and you're done, or Touch ID and you're done. And having extra biometrics available also gives you more data points for the system to learn your behavior. Like that is
Right.
one of the problems I think we're facing too, is that like the learned behavior of a device user is not as high as I would like to see it with Apple. It sometimes figures out like, oh, whenever I have a meeting on this calendar, I'm going to automatically put you in work focus. All right, that's great. Can you also figure out that if for some reason my phone is here, but my watch is there, that I'm probably not close to those things. So maybe not let, lock down everything on the phone a little bit more. I personally turned off the watch unlock for my phone just because, scenarios are possible. You close enough where you picked up my phone, you're looking at it, it doesn't unlock, and then I get a tap on the wrist, and it's like by the time, I may or may not even notice it, because that is an issue for me with the watch. Is like I don't feel those little taps all the time.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that if we have those multiple data points on the phone, Touch ID, Face ID at the same time, then we could probably forego a passcode lock.
Or at least encourage people to start using, because one thing I do is like I have a really long PIN code on my device, so it's not 6 digits, it's more like 11 or something. And I rarely have to type it in. It does make it easier because you just get a keypad if you do a long numeric code. But I think with multiple biometrics too, we could fall back to either enforcing stronger passcodes because they would be less likely to be needed as much, or Even encouraging people to use like an actual password. Like I could see a world where, you know, if you have to fall back to logging in with a password and to unlock your phone or your iPad or something, you're actually using your Apple ID password, right? Instead of, you know, some random PIN code that you're going to
Right.
remember that people are going to shorten or make too simple.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't really know the cost of parts, and putting things together, when it comes to all of that. But could it really be that much more money to put something like a fingerprint sensor in the power button of all the devices? I mean, is it really that much? Is it that costly to add? I don't know. I mean,
Well, I
maybe it
think it
is. Maybe
comes
that's why
down
they
to,
don't do it.
I think it comes down to the design. For example, Apple usually does a 3-year design process for their phones. So what we've had for the last 3 years has been the same design on the 12, 13, and 14. And I think the 15 is getting a different design. But they use a lot of the same metal cutouts and the metal pieces to make each year's phone. And so I think when they do the redesign, they could look at those kind of things. But I think as far as economics and producing all these things, they try to keep them the same for the 3-year cycle.
I would agree with you on that. The only thing that I kind of add a question mark to is the iPad Air and the iPad Pro 11-inch. They're almost the same. I mean, it couldn't be that different.
So I think it's a combination of a couple of things, though. One, I would say, especially with the phones, like the phone is the primary device. You really don't want to do anything to mess with the phone until you're sure about it. So I think partially the reason we got this in the iPad Air and the new iPad Mini is it's a testing ground, right? Like how problematic is this touch ID in the power button, right? Like, some real world testing from Apple, but, on a device is not nearly as popular as a phone. Like if you make a mistake with the touch ID sensor in the lock in the power button on a phone, that's literally millions, tens of millions of phones out there that have a problem. Whereas if you run into the same issue with the iPad Air, it's like, we probably sold maybe 10 million of those over the course of a year, not over the first weekend that it was available. So I think that's a little bit of it. Uh, I think also that it may be they don't have a compelling reason. And when I say compelling, they don't have a reason that they can explain to people, like, here's how you're going to use this. So I think it's one of those cases of like software not being where it needs to be in order for them to tell that story. Because I do think
Right.
one of the stories behind having multiple biometrics, yes, you can now make a choice, but for your more riskier or more highly sensitive transactions, use two. So instead of just having your kid be able to hold the phone up to your face to complete the purchase of an app or complete an in-app purchase, you can have it so that you have to, show your face and do your fingerprint in order to make an app store purchase, or just switch between them based off what you're doing. You can unlock your phone with your face, but you can't unlock your bank app without your fingerprint, right? I don't think
Right.
they have the software there necessarily either to kind of make that compelling story where, because we all know, like, Apple will have a feature, and we oftentimes hear, as we were talking about earlier in the show, like rumors start to come out, and there have been years, past couple of years really, where we get to the iPhone event and there's nothing new really announced at the event, but Apple tells the story in such a way that it's like, oh, I heard about that feature, 3 months ago was coming to the new phone, but now I kind of want the phone for this reason because Apple has woven this story behind it that makes it more compelling than
narrative.
just the narrative behind it.
Well, an interesting thing to think about is how many people have you heard that have had issues or problems with Face ID opposed to people who have had issues with a fingerprint sensor? I hear a ton of people having issues with the Face ID all the time. I don't ever hear anyone. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't mean there isn't anyone that has problems with the finger, but I hear way less issues with people using the fingerprint sensor than Face ID. I hear people have issues with Face ID constantly, whether there's actually an issue with it or they just have trouble with it in general.
Well, for me being low vision, it's always do I have it far enough away from my face when I go to activate and unlock?
That is one thing. Another tip I'll give people too, if you are having, sporadic issues, not consistent, just kind of sporadically having issues with Face ID not working, wipe off your lens at the top of your phone.
Good idea.
Yep.
And I only say that because, like, so Face ID is amazing, right? I can unlock my phone in the dark in the middle of the night. And all of a sudden, I was running into a situation where that wasn't working, like, just consistently was not unlocking for me in certain situations. And, you know, finally, at one point, I think I just wiped off the top of my screen because I was like, well, maybe something's covering up the camera. Who knows? I'm always eating and grabbing the phone and doing stuff. And it went back to working. So that's where that tip comes from for me, is just experience of, you know, sometimes wiping the lens off at the top, especially if you're like me and you don't do selfies and things like that. You probably don't really think about that camera up there.
Yeah, that's
Right.
true. And I think it's probably a little bit more sensitive in a 14 model because I believe in anything previous to a 14, 13 and back, I believe it's in the camera bump up there. So it's a little bit more protected, where on the 14s, I think it's really kind of somewhere around that dynamic island area, which is really right in the glass. There's no major bump in the 14 models.
There was no,
or at least in
bump
the 14 Pro models. Let me rephrase that.
There was no bump in the others. It was just the notch, which was all part of the glass as well. So it's really about the same.
Okay.
It's just in the 14 models, it's lower down.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
Because they took the notch out, so it's kind of, you know, you see where you can more easily see where it is, but it's still the same kind
Right.
of setup at this point. They have not put the camera under the glass, which is still a rumor that's been going on for like 3 years. That they're going to put a camera under the glass, and then it'll just be all glass on the front, no cameras showing. But if my experience with in-screen fingerprint readers is any indication, like, please wait on that. Take your time on that one, Apple.
You know what? I've had very good luck with Samsungs.
I haven't tried theirs. I've tried 2 Pixel phones with it, and the experience was not the best for me. I did try early Samsung, I think, when they first did it, but that was also at a time when their in-screen fingerprint reader was very new and also not super secure either.
I'm pretty happy with the one on the S21. So I will say that. The last thing I want to talk about, and I think you guys have talked about this on Unmute as well, is when you go to charge your phone, if you're out, do not plug your phone into an unknown charger. Bring your own adapters, because you don't know what kind of plugs, or if they are able to pull data off your phone or jailbreak your phone or do anything nefarious to your device.
So here is a question, and maybe Demasi can answer this question. I'm not sure, but if you plug your cable straight into one of those charging stations in an airport, for example, which is, you know, a coffee shop or an airport are going to be the places you're the most vulnerable. Is it only the cable or the port that is going to have a way to you know, cause issues with your device? Or, for example, let's say you have like a charging brick, or, you know, one of those, you know, power adapters that has 4 ports on the front, like 2 or 3 USB-Cs and a USB-A, and then you plug that in, then you plug your cable into that. Is it still going to get infected, or is it only a cable directly into the port, or even a plug or whatever?
So it's going to be a cable going into it. So in a lot of public spaces, there are USB ports just sitting there that you plug your cable into, right? At that point, that USB port is the problem. And it's always going to be the problem with the port, like whatever is on the back end of that port that has been embedded into the device that has that USB port.
So if you're using a charger brick,
Yeah, so
that's
yeah,
still
so
going
you
to
have-
be the same thing. You're still going to get
No, that's
Oh.
not, because if you bring your own charging brick and plug it into a standard outlet, well, that's your power brick, right? So if you're carrying around a malicious power brick, that's
Right.
something you have done to yourself.
They
The
can't really
problem,
do... Oh, go ahead, Demasi.
I was gonna say, the problem is, like, so plugging into an outlet, you're fine. If you have your own power brick, you're plugging into an outlet, you're perfectly fine. That still works. It's the problem, like, and I see this, like, I was, you know, in a hotel, right? They got a USB ports on the lamp to plug in the charger device, because everybody has USB devices to plug in and charge, right? Don't plug into something like that, because you have no idea what else is in that lamp, right? Use a standard outlet with your normal charging brick, or a travel charging brick that you bring with you. You don't want to be plugging into anybody's random USB ports that are just hanging out there, regardless of how they have managed to provide that USB port is unknown. It's an unknown port to you. It's sort of the same thing of 20-ish years ago, you go around with your little flash drive that's got your documents on it that you keep, and you just plug it into a random unknown computer port. Like, you have no idea what you're taking home with you. And the problem is that oftentimes we're not aware of when there are vulnerabilities in software until someone discloses the vulnerability. So it's not that Apple's not on their job, because the phone does attempt, all of the devices attempt to protect you when you plug into a new unknown thing that wants to try to suck data off your phone. You know, you'll get a pop-up that says, do you want to trust this device? Where if there happens to be a vulnerability that we're not aware of, and Apple at the time is not aware of, that allows people to circumvent that some sort of way, you're now putting yourself at risk of having your data scraped off your phone, because nobody's encryption helps you when they're looking at the device that has decrypted the information.
Right. And
So if you want to really stay safe, bring your own charging brick and
yes.
find a plug.
they don't have data over power outlets yet. I mean, there are such a thing, but it's like,
Yeah, that is less likely. And plus, your power brick 9 times out of 10 is not going to support that anyway. Like, you have to have a very specialized thing. So yeah, bring your own power brick or bring your own portable battery charger for yourself. And personally, like, this has not ever been a concern of mine, because if I'm traveling, I'm always going to bring a portable battery anyway, because you're in an airport, everybody's trying to charge their device. So your chances of getting to a outlet are very low, in my opinion, in most cases anyway.
and I mean, think about the germs and the cleanliness of those areas.
There's that too.
Yeah. You don't want to touch that area.
I mean, just think about this. If you have a Mac laptop, okay, you've got a giant power battery pack because you can plug in your phone to your Mac with the lid shut, and it will charge your phone.
It will absolutely do that, and I am living proof, because I did it on a Greyhound on the way back to Alabama about 3 months ago. I had a power brick to plug into the outlet on the Greyhound bus, because they had an actual outlet, but none of their outlets worked. And I was like, man, like, I'm still a long way from getting home, and I got to call her, get a lift when I get here and all of that. And I was like, oh, wait, I got a laptop in my backpack. I'll just plug it into the laptop. All right, boom, there we go. Charge the whole thing up just fine.
And you could even do that.
Didn't even notice it.
You could even do that with a MacBook Air, and it will.
That's what I was using, was a MacBook Air, the M2 MacBook Air. As I say, like, the battery life, didn't even notice it.
Mm-hmm. So
that's a pretty cool tip. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I don't know about Windows laptops. I think those are like the hibernate states are a little more aggressive than the Mac, but for sure, if you have Apple devices, you have a Mac, easy way to get a charge.
Yep, that works. There's been some advice out there, and I'll kind of address it a little bit. So there are such a thing when you're buying a cable for any device. And just on a side note, like, even if you're an Android user, like, don't plug into random public USB ports either. Like, this applies to everybody, not just people with iPhones. Like, don't do it. Take your own power source.
I think Androids are even more susceptible. That's just my thought. But
and think about it from the perspective of when someone has physical access to a device, there's a lot more things they can attempt than remotely trying to access your device. So be aware of that. There are such a thing in both the USB-C and the Lightning world of cables that only do charging and don't sync data, which means it doesn't matter what you plugged it into, it can't sync data because it doesn't support that. However, I would not depend on that to be my protection, simply because I have bought cables that weren't supposed to do things and they did them, and I bought cables that were supposed to do things and they didn't. You never know when you're buying a cable if they gave you the correct specifications, especially when you're shopping on Amazon, and most of us do. So just buy a portable
Charging brick.
Yeah, and carry that with you, or bring a power brick. I mean, for me, I have both. Like, I have a portable battery that is just a battery pack, and I can plug, anything USB into it to charge. And when I get where I'm going, I have a multi-port wall plug that I can plug into the wall and, plug my things into. So either one of those, I would say, if you're picking it for travel, in the midst of travel, like, you want to make sure you don't lose your battery during, your layovers and all of that on planes or buses, get a portable battery pack, because that means you can charge anywhere you're sitting. You don't have to be fortunate enough to be next to an outlet to plug up.
And they're currently on sale at AT Dies if you're looking for an accessible one.
There you go. So, this has been a great discussion, but unfortunately, we're running low on time. Do you guys have any final thoughts before we wrap up today?
Stay aware so you stay secure.
Yeah, keep yourself safe, and the small things like carrying a power adapter with you, having cables that you know are safe with you is going to keep you safe and give you way less of a headache in the long run. So, take an extra few minutes and make sure that you're, keeping what you need and keeping yourself safe from problems going forward.
Yep. All right. So we are down to the end of this show. And as always, we do our picks for this episode and contact information. So, Marty, since you came in last, let's have you go first. What's your pick, and where can people find you online?
So my pick is going to be, and it's ironic we're talking about chargers. My pick is going to be, and this is made by a company called Anchor, which you can find on Amazon. And what it is it's a wall charger. It's got 4 ports. It's called a GAN wall charger. It's got 1 USB-A, 3 USB-Cs. They all automatically switch to whatever power is needed, whether it's the laptop, a phone, a tablet, whatever it is. But the cool thing about it is it also has a 10,000 mAh battery in it. So when you plug it into the wall and you charge up all your devices, it's also charging up the battery in there, and you have a full battery on the go, and you don't need to get another thing. So definitely cool. It's one of my, I would say, new favorite Go devices for my Go bag. So yeah. And if anyone wants to get a hold of me, you can find me at feedback@unmute.show. And there you go.
Excellent. Damasi, what about you? What's your pick and your contact info?
So, has anybody picked Mac Whisper before?
Not yet.
Nope.
All right. So my pick is going to be Mac Whisper, and Mac Whisper is an application. Just to back up a little bit and give you some context, Whisper is a protocol, is a set of tools put together by the people over at OpenAI, which are the folks behind Chat GPT and Dolly 2 as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
But what Whisper does is allow you to send an audio file, push an audio file into it, and it will transcribe that audio to text, and it handles several different languages and has several different models that can be used for transcribing that audio. Mac Whisper is just a desktop application for the Mac that allows you to, drag and drop or open up a file there and have it transcribed with timestamps. And at least to my knowledge right now, it can identify 2 different speakers, so you can go in and label which speaker is which, but it can tell the difference at least between 2 different people. I have not been on a call where I've had more than just me and someone else there that I've recorded. And a new feature that they've just added, which allows you to record the audio from any application on the Mac as well. So I have used that to grab audio out of Zoom from the person that's in Zoom, and then also grab my microphone audio, so I have a full transcript of the Zoom call, which I'm more likely to skim and reread than actually listening to the Zoom recording.
So before you give your contact info, I just want to say that, I built a Python script that can do the use Whisper. It's interesting because I do not know how to get to do timestamps, but it's very interesting that it's able to do all that. I'm guessing it's using Whisper on the Mac unless it's going out and using the cloud.
Nope, it is doing everything. That is the other thing about Whisper. Whisper is done, in most cases, there are people hosting it in the cloud, but typically you can install it and it's run specifically from your device. And like you, Michael, I hadn't made a Python script yet because I hadn't gotten around to trying to write a script, but I was using the command line tools for Whisper for a while. And Mac Whisper just made it so much easier
I built
to deal with.
I built a WX Python script, like a GUI for it and everything. And it's really neat, but it seems like this one has a lot more features than what I was able to get out of just Python. So
2 things I would say about Damasi's pick. I believe there's a paid and a free version. Is that right, Damasi?
There's a free version and there's a paid version.
And I believe if you have 8 gigs of RAM, it will work. It just might not be quite as peppy. So it'll still work, but just be cognizant of if you only have 8 gigs of RAM.
Yeah, it'll work fine on this, and that's why the different models are there as well. So there's a very small model that is pretty fast on any kind of hardware, but the accuracy. So you change models with Whisper in general, and Mac Whisper is the same. It's using those same models to basically turn up how accurate you want the transcription to be. The more accuracy you want, the longer it is going to take. But for me, like a lot of times, I'm running on that smaller, lightweight model because I just need the basic information out of a Zoom meeting. Like I don't need all of this.
Medium or large takes quite a while, even on my
Yeah.
beefy M1 Max with 32 gigs of RAM.
Yeah, and it takes a while on my Air. Like I'm on an M2 Air with 24 gigs of RAM. So but it is going to be slower because it's doing more analysis. One nice thing about Mac Whisper for anybody that has used the command line tools before, it's very easy to tell it, even though you're using the large language model that has support for all these different languages, to say, nope, just run this as English so you don't waste that time at least trying to analyze each word to figure out, is it English, is it German, is it Spanish? No, it's all English. Just get to it.
Fantastic.
Oh, contact details. So you can get to me by emailing hello@bedrockinnovations.com. And I'm also on that social network that I can't remember the name of, Mastodon. If you go to Damashe, DAMASHE.yourownpay.com, that will get you to me on Mastodon, wherever I happen to be this month.
Oh, all right. And Michael, what about your pick and your contact info?
Yeah, so my pick is going to be one that I may have picked in the past, but it's Reaper. More specifically, Reaper and macros. So I've been using Reaper for years now, and Reaper is an audio editor, and I was editing an audio with someone and coaching them through the process of how I was putting their audio together so they could launch their podcast next week. And, I was sharing audio through Loopback, and I'm glad I'm bringing this up because I need to go fix that and, all that fun stuff. And I realized that some of the macros that I've put together, though they seem very basic and they're only 3 steps, have saved me a lot of time. For example, if I hit the left bracket key, that starts a time selection across all of your tracks. You play through where you want to edit, and now when I hit the right bracket key, it used to just stop playback and there's my time selection, and I can play it if I want and then delete it and whatever. But now when I hit my right bracket key, it puts that in time selection marker in. It moves the focus to the beginning of the time selection back about a second, and then it plays skipping that time selection, all with one keystroke. And to me, like, that's only 3 steps, but I am really encouraged to tell people, check out Reaper. It's very customizable. If you tried it and you're like, this doesn't work for my workflow, maybe reconsider it and realize you don't have to keep the same mapped keys. And I think that's something that a friend of mine that I'm getting to know better, Jacob, mentioned. And he's like, I don't use the default key map. I make my own key map to work with my workflow. And if that's possible, realize that could help you save a lot of time. You can find me at Payon, Payown, on just about everywhere. LinkedIn. I'm still on Twitter occasionally. And you can also go to michael.yourownpay.com to find me on Mastodon.
Fantastic. I want to give my contact info in just a second, but I got a text from a friend of the show, Luis Ramos, who, and I want to say thank you to everybody in the chat, Logic Pro X Gaming, for chatting with us. He talked a little bit about the SpaceX, that the rocket does have a button they could press to, destroy the rocket and burn up the fuel so it's not toxic or things like that. But Luis said that rapid disassembly is actually made popular by a video game, and that was the Kerbal Space Program video game, where you build rockets and they can take off, fly around planets, and either land successfully or land terribly. So rapid disassembly was made popular by that, apparently. So that's pretty interesting. I'm sure it was used in other places, but popular culture kind of knows it from that. So that's kind of interesting.
And somebody at SpaceX has a sense of humor, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So my pick for this week is a recommendation from Marty, and that is the Sennheiser Profile microphone. I'm talking on it right now. Love it. It's a bit different from my ATR 2100. I don't have to be right up on this microphone like I have it on the other. I can adjust the gain and the mix and the volume of the monitor. I love all of those things. The mute button. You never know if I mute. So it's just a great microphone, good design, good price at $130. USB-C. It just works so well, and you can use it on an iPad as well. So that has me really excited about that. So thank you, Marty, for that recommendation. This will always go in my travel bag, and well, it sits on my desk permanently. So
Cool. Glad you enjoy it.
yeah, it's been one of the better tech purchases I've made in a while. So thank you for that.
Yep.
And all of our picks are in the show notes. So if you're looking at the podcast later, check those out, and you can see those there. As for where people can find me online, I'm Mike Dowies on Twitter, Mike Dowies at techopolis.social. On Mastodon, you can email me at mikedowies@icloud.com, and I'm all over the web. Just do a search for me. There's another Michael Dowies in Texas, but I have far many more results. But just Googling your name is very interesting if you've ever done that. So I want to thank everybody for being here. Demasi, glad to have you on the show. We want to have you back a lot more. Marty, thanks for being back. And Michael, thanks for being back again. And it's been fantastic being with all of you guys today. And, we'll do this again in 2 weeks. So thanks, everyone.